It's April 24th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. Starting with the medical services shutdown here in South Korea. Medical school professors who turned in their resignation letters a month ago will now be able to start leaving their hospitals starting Thursday. Some leading hospitals are also halting outpatient services and surgeries once a week. South Korea's very first nano-satellite, Neonsat-1, launched from here, New Zealand just a few hours ago. Neonsat-1 is the first of 11 nano-satellites that will form a satellite constellation to monitor and take images of the Korean peninsula. The Israel-Hamas war entered its 200th day on Tuesday, and tensions are yet again on the rise in Gaza, with the fighting between the Israeli army and Hamas intensifying. It's been 1 month since medical school professors submitted resignation letters in protest against the government's plan to increase the medical school admissions quota. That means they can now actually walk away from their posts, and some medical services are also being shut down. Our Park Gon-woo reports.
Professors from leading hospitals nationwide have decided to halt all outpatient services and surgeries once a week due to fatigue resulting from the prolonged resident doctors' walkout. The Emergency Committee of the Seoul National University Medical Professors Council said on Tuesday that this will take effect for them from April 30th. On the same day, the Emergency Council of Ulsan University Medical Professors also announced that resignations will begin this Thursday as scheduled beforehand, and those who are unable to resign immediately will be halting medical services once a week from May 3rd. But essential services such as emergency and intensive care are not expected to be affected. This is seen as a new strategy by the senior doctors to pressure the government ahead of finalizing the 2025 medical school admissions quota at the end of this month. With medical professors' resignations set to take effect this Thursday, patient anxiety is escalating. Since March 25th, professors have submitted their resignations in support of the resident doctors' protest. In response, the Korea Alliance of Patients organization issued a statement on Monday urging the professors to continue providing essential care. At a Tuesday briefing, Senior Presidential Secretary for Social Affairs Jang Sang-yoon expressed disappointment over the doctors' boycott of the newly created Special Committee on Medical Reform.
We regret that the Korean Medical Association is not participating in this crucial multi-sector body, which aims to shape the future of our nation's healthcare, and that the Korean Intern Resident Association has not yet taken a stance. We are hopeful for a change before the committee's launch.
Chang also stressed that the government remains open to dialogue if the medical community provides a well-substantiated, unified proposal on the medical school quota increase. Currently, the doctors' organizations are calling for the government to completely reconsider the plan. On Tuesday, Lee Myung-taek, the president-elect of the Korean Medical Association, said on social media that officials responsible for the ongoing standoff, including the second Vice Health Minister Bang Min-soo, must be dismissed before any further talks can take place. The Health Ministry, however, said that linking the doctors' return to work to the dismissal of specific officials was unreasonable. Park Gon-woo, Arirang News.
Less than 2 hours ago, South Korea successfully put into orbit its first domestically made Earth observation satellite. Our An Sung-jin explains in detail what this means.
A rocket launches into space, carrying its payload from South Korea. That payload is an Earth observation nano-satellite developed by the Satellite Technology Research Center at the Korea Advanced Institute of Science and Technology. It's being taken into space by U.S. company Rocket Lab's lightweight Electron orbital rocket, which was launched on Wednesday morning from Mahia, New Zealand. That rocket was also carrying an advanced composite solar sail system created by the U.S. National Aeronautics and Space Administration. Korea's nano-satellite separated from the rocket 50 minutes after launch and is set to come into contact with the Korea Aerospace Research Institute 4.5 hours after launch at around noon Korean time. The satellite named Neonsat-1 is just the beginning of the South Korea's mission Beginning of the Swarm, which aims to establish a satellite constellation network by 2027 by adding 10 other satellites. Weighing less than 100 kilograms, it will be used to observe the Earth, using a high-resolution optical camera from an altitude of 500 kilometers. The Science Ministry stated that through the satellite cluster, not only will the country be able to quickly respond to natural disasters and security threats, but it could also reduce costs needed to purchase satellite images from overseas. Starting in May 2020 and running until December 2027, the project, funded through the Science Ministry, will cost over 230 billion won or $168 million. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
Despite Israel withdrawing most of its ground troops from the Gaza Strip, the battle between the Israeli army and Hamas has once again re-intensified. Lee Seung-jae has more.
The Israeli military carried out its most powerful airstrikes in weeks across Gaza Strip on Tuesday. According to Reuters, Israeli soldiers ordered residents to evacuate, telling civilians that they were in a dangerous combat zone. Residents in the region also said that there had been non-stop bombardments by Israeli tanks and fighter jets. This comes as the Israeli military last week began moving tanks into Beit Hanun on the northeast edge of the Gaza Strip. It's also been nearly 4 months since Israel halted its offensive in the northern enclave after claiming that Hamas had lost control of the region. Despite the Israeli military withdrawing most of its troops from southern Gaza earlier this month, leaving behind only 1 brigade, airstrikes and ground offensives were also reported in central and southern regions of the Gaza Strip. Hamas has reorganized its battle lines and restarted its resistance against Israeli forces, firing rockets toward southern Israel. In a video message aired on Al Jazeera to mark the 200th day of the war, a spokesman for Hamas said that Israel had suffered nothing but humiliation and defeat and urged an escalation of the war on all fronts. The Israeli military, on the other hand, slammed the Palestinian militant group for targeting Israeli civilians, while emphasizing that its military follows international law and takes feasible precautions to mitigate civilian harm. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Talks on how much South Korea and the U.S. will each pay to keep American troops stationed in South Korea are ongoing over in Hawaii. Will they be able to strike an early deal? We're joined by Chris Kiskihil from VOA this morning. Hello there, Chris.
Good morning to you.
Good afternoon to you. Chris, what are the two sides looking to get out of the 3-day discussions? Let's start with the U.S.
Well, we're talking about the Special Measures Agreement, or SMA, and the current 6-year one expires at the end of next year, 2025. And now this covers the more than 28,000 American troops that are stationed in South Korea as part of the effort to deter nuclear-armed North Korea. Now, in a statement, Linda Specht, who is the special advisor and lead negotiator for security agreements at the U.S. State Department, and she's leading the U.S. delegation in these negotiations this week in Hawaii, she said the United States seeks a fair and equitable outcome to the Special Measures Agreement discussions for both countries that will strengthen and sustain the U.S.-ROK alliance. Back to you.
Right. What did the South Korean side have to say then ahead of the meeting?
Well, the South Korean Foreign Ministry had very similar goals in their statement. They said the government will proceed with consultations with the stance that our defense cost sharing should be carried out at a reasonable level for establishing conditions for the stable stationing of U.S. forces in Korea and strengthening the Korea-U.S. combined defense posture. Now, their delegation is led by Lee Tae-woo, who is a senior diplomat and former consul general in Sydney that is leading that delegation that's meeting in Hawaii this week. Now, as you know, South Korea began shouldering the cost of the deployment, used to fund local labor and hire workers, the construction of military installations and other logistic supports in the early 1990s.
Right, and what's so notable about the talks this time that they're taking place earlier than usual. Is it safe to say it's because of the possibility of former U.S. President Donald Trump making a White House comeback?
Well, these negotiations are taking place 20 months before the expiration of the current SMA. Now, this is a break from the norm, as the negotiations on successor pacts usually are held right before they're set to expire. But a senior Biden administration official said in March that talks were on track and ahead of schedule, but that the U.S. did not see November as a hard deadline. And as you know, current President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump are set to face off in the November election here in the U.S.
Right, we do have to stress that it does take some time to come to an agreement every time they take those discussions. Now, some analysts are also saying that Trump may throw away the 2026 deal that is coming out of Hawaii this time. Now, if he does get elected, is that so? Can such a possibility not be ruled out?
Well, you'll recall how contentious the negotiations were in 2019 when Trump demanded that Seoul pay as much as $5 billion per year in this cost-sharing agreement, and he accused South Korea of going on a free ride on U.S. taxpayers' dollars. Now, the U.S. and South Korea side struggled for months to reach a deal before Seoul agreed to increase its contribution by 13.9% over the previous 2019 pact, and Seoul had paid about $920 million annually up to that point. And that was the biggest annual rise in nearly 2 decades. Now, a senior South Korean presidential official said last month Seoul expects no fundamental shift in relations, even if U.S. voters elect a new president, but they are hoping for progress in this new defense cost-sharing agreement as the year progresses. Back to you.
Right. It was always a struggle for the South Korean side to come to an agreement during the Trump administration back then. Now, Chris, what outcome is expected for the deal this time? I know it's hard to predict, though.
It may be hard to predict, but I mean, this is an agreement that has been one of the hallmarks of the U.S.-South Korea relationship for decades. So it's not expected that there are going to be any major hangups with the Biden administration. And, you know, as I said before that, those talks seem to be progressing on track, and we'll see if there's any major hangups as the week progresses.
Right. The discussions are taking place for 3 days over in Hawaii. But Chris, how long should we expect the discussions to last this time?
Well, we'll just have to see how it goes. I mean, last time it took months to reach an agreement in 2019. But since they're meeting 20 months early, hopefully they'll make some good ground in this week, and then they'll build upon that ground, and then they'll come to an agreement. But as far as the timetable, both sides haven't said anything about a timetable, but at least they are getting ahead of the game with the agreement set to expire at the end of next year.
All right, Chris, thank you so much for the coverage this morning. We appreciate it as always.
Good to be with you.
President Yoon Suk-yeol hosted his Romanian counterpart, Klaus Iohannis, at the Yongsan office on Tuesday. There, the two sides agreed to bolster cooperation on defense, nuclear power plants, and more. Our presidential office correspondent Oh Soo-young reports.
South Korea and Romania agreed to strengthen their strategic bilateral ties, inking deals to cooperate on defense weaponry and nuclear power plants. That's according to a joint statement released by President Yoon Suk-yeol and his Romanian counterpart Klaus Iohannis following their summit at the Yongsan presidential office on Tuesday. Building on their existing bilateral consultations on defense-related issues, the two nations agreed to ramp up cooperation in jointly producing military equipment and defense technology, and establish working-level talks between the two sides to address pertinent issues. The two also agreed to work together to address cybersecurity and showed interest in advancing negotiations for the Korea-European Union Security Partnership. Another key outcome was nuclear energy, as Seoul seeks opportunities for its companies to win contracts to build small modular reactors abroad. The two governments signed a memorandum of understanding to establish nuclear energy cooperation, including on nuclear facility enhancement, nuclear fuel, nuclear waste management, as well as personnel development and information on supply chains. While committing to non-proliferation and the civil use of nuclear power, they agreed on the importance of nuclear technology in meeting global net zero targets, with Romania backing South Korea's carbon-free energy initiative. The two nations will also increase cooperation on infrastructure development, based on a deal reached last May between Busan Port Authority and Romania's Port of Constanța. Based on their shared values of democracy, human rights and the rule of law, the two countries agreed on the need to strengthen multilateralism, especially in the face of global security challenges. They condemned North Korea's illegal nuclear and missile programs, calling for its denuclearization and the human rights of its oppressed citizens. Seoul and Bucharest also criticised Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine, agreeing to ramp up collective pressure on Moscow through restrictive measures. Amid global supply chain disruptions and the ongoing transition to green energy, the two countries agreed to build on South Korea and the EU's frameworks, including on free trade, economic security, and green and digital partnerships. With bilateral ties stretching back to 1990, upgraded to a strategic cooperation in 2008. This marks the first time in 16 years that a Romanian leader has visited South Korea. Following his summit with Yoon and a meeting with Prime Minister Han Duck-soo, Iohannis will visit power plant builder Tusan Enerbility's Changwon factory on Wednesday before he leaves for Romania on Thursday. Oseong, Arirang News.
A rollout for Kpass, a cashback system for public transportation across South Korea, starts today. Now, the project, launched alongside the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport, will begin issuing the Kpass cards on Wednesday before the official start date for use on May 1st. Kpass is a transportation card that gives cash back for a maximum of 60 trips on public transport per month if used at least 15 times per month. Low-income users can receive a 53% refund, while people aged 19 to 34 can get 30%. 20% reimbursement is given to all other cardholders.
Good morning, I'm Kim Si-young, and now we turn off to stories from around the world. We begin today in France, where 5 migrants died in a failed attempt to cross the English Channel in an inflatable boat on Tuesday. According to a local official, a 7-year-old girl, a woman and 3 men died in the incident, which involved a small boat carrying 112 people near the French resort town of Wimereux. The overcrowded boat reportedly hit a sandbank, causing a number of passengers to fall into the water. A patrol boat was immediately dispatched to the scene, where rescuers found several people unconscious. 47 of the passengers were rescued, but 50 remained on board the boat and decided to continue the crossing. Only hours earlier, the UK's controversial Rwanda Bill was passed, aimed at discouraging illegal migrants from crossing the English Channel by sending them to Rwanda. So far this year, over 6,000 migrants and refugees have already crossed the dangerous sea route from France to the UK. Taiwan has had more than 200 earthquakes since Monday afternoon, the largest registering at 6.3 magnitude. The country's Central Weather Administration said that the quakes were aftershocks from the devastating 7.2 magnitude earthquake of April 3rd. Around 3 weeks after the April 3rd earthquake, which killed at least 17 people, Taiwan's Hualien County has been hit again by dozens of quakes. The Hualien Fire Department began cleaning up efforts on Tuesday following the additional quakes, while no casualties were reported. The Taiwanese government closed schools and workplaces in the region on Tuesday. The director of Taipei's Seismological Center, Wu Chen-fu, said that the quakes were a concentrated release of energy, that there may be still be additional weaker earthquakes in the coming days. Now to Malaysia, where 2 Navy helicopters collided in mid-air during a naval parade rehearsal on Tuesday morning, killing all 10 crew members. The AW139 Maritime Operations helicopter and the Eurocopter Fennec crashed during training at the Lumut Naval Base ahead of celebrations for the 90th anniversary of the Royal Malaysian Navy on Saturday. The crew members, who were all under the age of 40, died at the scene. Defence Minister Mohammed Khaled Nordin said that the investigations are underway. A guitar played by Beatles legend John Lennon is set for auction after having been lost for 50 years. The 12-string acoustic guitar was found in the attic of a home in the UK by the son of its current owners. The guitar, which featured in the group's Help and Rubber Soul sessions, goes under the hammer at the Music Icons auction event at New York's Hard Rock Cafe on May 29th. The organizer, Julian's Auctions, said that the guitar, an early 1960s Hootenanny acoustic guitar, is expected to fetch a price exceeding its estimate of $600,000 to $800,000 US.
Good morning. Spring warmth was replaced by heavy rain this morning. Right now, rain clouds are passing through central and Jeollado provinces. 5 to 20 millimeters of rain is in the forecast for most regions, along with thunderstorms and strong winds. Please brace for heavier rain during the first half of the day before the skies clear in the afternoon. Today's rain will bring down the highs in central regions and Jeollado provinces. Seoul only see a high of 17 degrees Celsius, but strong winds will make it feel cooler. It looks like it's going to rain all day, but actually sunshine should return later in the day from Jeollado. Gwangju sees a high of 19 degrees Celsius, Busan topping out at 21 degrees. Don't leave your umbrellas behind today. Pleasant spring weather returns tomorrow, then it will only get warmer as we head towards the weekend. We could even have a glimpse of summer weather again this weekend. With that in mind, let's take a look at the international weather conditions.
We thank you for watching New Day at Arirang. We'll be back tomorrow for Thursday's edition at the same time, 9 a.m. Korea time.